Hey guys, welcome to book review number 53. Now, as you can see, I'm doing this from my car. But the book we're going to be reviewing today is Hong Kong, One Modern Family's Misadventures in the Gateway to China. There you go. And it's by Paul Hanstedt. Alright, well, as the title mentions, this book is about Hong Kong, but while it is a travel book, the primary focus of the book is his family. Specifically, how his family adjusts to life in Hong Kong, as well as each of their personalities. So to get right into it, Paul's wife is Ellen, and then he has 3 children, 2 boys, 1 girl. And the 2 boys are Will, who's the oldest, and Jamie, who is the youngest. He's a son. And then there's Lucy, the middle child, which is a girl. And he talks, like I said, extensively about his family, just kind of a brief general synopsis of the characters. You know, Will is the oldest. He's kind of a little bit withdrawn, big reader, kind of gets picked on a little bit. I think he's like 8 or 9. Lucy's like 6 and is just starting school in Hong Kong, or in Hong Kong as her first year. And she's kind of the wild child of the family. And then Jamie is also kind of wild, but wild because he's a toddler, not because, well, it is his personality, but he's not old enough to really kind of be his own person yet, if you will. So anyway, the thing that I found more important, or maybe not more important, but just within my interest more intriguing, was the diffusion of culture through this family. Now, as I said, this book primarily is about the family and all their wackiness and adjusting to life there, but you know, they don't live in a bubble. It does specifically focus on the year in Hong Kong, so you get a lot of cultural diffusion of what Hong Kong is through the response of the family. For example, a regular tour book might talk about how in Hong Kong, when you're served a chicken, the chicken, like a whole roasted chicken, the chicken's heads are left on, and so you can see like the eyeballs and the face and the beak and everything. But that's one thing, but it's a whole nother thing to have a gaggle of children respond to that either with joy or, well, not really joy, but kind of like freaking out, or not really glee, but just kind of like a morbid, it's a chicken head kind of thing. But anyway, yeah, the first half of the book kind of focuses more on their schooling and their first time there. I'd probably say the first 2/3 of the book. And then the last third of the book really focuses on the family's travels to various places around East Asia. Some of the other things that I kind of observed about the Hong Kong section of the book, I was a little surprised. Well, I guess I shouldn't be surprised. One of the big areas for expats is the islands, but they actually chose not to live on the islands. Now, this is partially because the reason that Paul was able to go to and live in Hong Kong with his family for a year was because he got a Fulbright scholarship to set up a general education program. Let me move this camera a little bit. Set up a general education program for one of the universities, I forget which one, in the territories, in the Hong Kong, if you don't know, the Hong Kong Special Administrative Territories, which is part of China, but as I've said in past reviews, is politically separate and much more Western by government and kind of politics, sort of, but still very much China by culture. This being because previously it had been a colony of Great Britain for 150 some odd years. But anyway, his family lived up in the New Territories, which is kind of a distinct separation from what you think of as Hong Kong. They lived in a high-rise building, but they lived in a high-rise building that was largely surrounded by lush green mountains, countryside, not very, intense, how do I put this? Intense urbanization, at least outside of his buildings, the surroundings. And he mentioned the schools that his children went to. Hong Kong has a very competitive, a very competitive school system as a whole, but particularly among expats, a very competitive English taught curriculum, and mostly via private schools. This is maybe a little bit for ethnically Chinese Hong Kongers, but mostly for expats, like I said. So kind of the group that I'd like to be in my lifetime, which is that kind of English, but not quite sure where they're from, gin and tonic, but no longer colonial colonizer types, just kind of some are involved in business, some have grants, as this Paul does. But anyway, yeah, like it draws a lot of those people. He specifically mentions families from Malaysia or various parts of India, or even from the United States and the United Kingdom that learn in these schools. So yeah, it's very competitive. He said that because they got there late, they actually had to choose a school that probably would not be their first choice, but was by no means terrible, but was just kind of not the first choice on their list. And they found this out by the bullying that eventually happened to Will, their oldest son. They found out that a lot of the children that were rejected by these other schools actually wound up going to this school. I think it's the Hong Kong International School or something. But he felt that while it's certainly nothing you would ever want from your child, and in the moment he said he was almost wanting to grab the kid's necks and say, "Stop bullying my children." It was something that forged character in Will, the oldest child. Him being a very inward personality. Okay, let's see, who else is there? There's Lucy, who's kind of the wild child. He mentions that she just is your stereotypical middle child, just constantly poking her younger brother. See, she's in a perfect position because her older brother is very withdrawn. So, kind of, she can give a lot of crap to him without him exploding, at least initially. Now he does at some points. And then the younger child, Jamie, is not really old enough to respond, even in a childlike way, because he's a toddler, so she can kind of get to him without, kind of just confusing him because he's so young. So yeah, he also mentions that Lucy is the one that would try the chicken heads, or would eat all sorts of I can't come up with any right now, but just all sorts of different types of offal dishes, or meat that they take the meat cleaver with the bone in it and suck out the marrow. She was really very adventurous in that way. And then the youngest child is Jamie, who he actually mentions very sweetly at the end of the book. He's the one child that kind of went from just being a mass of a person, as children are, to actually having an identifiable personality by the end of the book. And he said it was very sweet, and he thought that Jamie would very much be affected. Matter of fact, this book does have some pictures in it, and one of the pictures towards the end is Jamie, who's 3 or something, sitting in a panda sanctuary, right next to a giant panda, obviously with monitors in tow. But he said that this would be something that Jamie would never forget, that Will and Lucy would always have memories before they went to Hong Kong, but that would be kind of one of Lucy and Will would have memories before they went to Hong Kong, but that would be one of Jamie's really first memories. What else? Well, I guess there's the travel. A little thing more about Hong Kong. He did mention kind of the urban-rural split, how they live kind of in the rural area, which seems kind of an oxymoron, but also that they took regular MTR or subway, light rail into the city, and saw you know, your standards, your Victoria Peaks, your International Finance Center. They took the Star Ferry. They saw Kowloon with all its shops and all its haggling, which I'm sure, you know, I've been there, little brag, which I'm sure would just be kind of frightening for a parent that, admittingly, from this book is a little overprotective to begin with. Having those crazy hawking style commerce, mass of people, very easily to get the children lost. I'm sure it would just be a nightmare going through those areas of Hong Kong. But to Paul's credit, he actually took his kids there quite a bit, as did Ellen, his wife, who he mentions quite a bit in the book as being. They both seem very reasonable, but adventurous but reasonable. So they're willing to try new things, but they're also kind of very common sense, Midwestern root type people. He's from Wisconsin, I think. As for the traveling, you know, he went to let's see, he went to Guilin, which is like Yangzhou, kind of all the mountains, or all the like Chinese paintings all come from there, where you see like the very picturesque mountains. They went to Shanghai, where he said he had one of the best meals of his life, just on kind of a tip or recommendation. That's one of the great things about traveling, is sometimes you just stumble across like random meals or random sites or random temples that you never expected but really mean something very deep to you. And then he said at the very end of the book they went to Cambodia and I think Vietnam too. Maybe it was Bangkok, I don't know, I can't remember. But definitely Cambodia, and that's where the book kind of ends, is them visiting Angkor Wat and some of the temples there. And not just one temple, but what really affected them was it was like temple after temple after temple that they could all walk through kind of in a maze or whatever. Yeah, in general, I'd say that in this review I've done a good job. I'm going to review the review. I've done a good job in reviewing this book, in that it really does focus more on children than on Hong Kong. But because children are such absorbers of culture, you really do kind of get an understanding of what Hong Kong means by their reaction to it. By what a lot of times would be a more honest reaction than the reaction that you would get from an adult, which either is jaded or cliched or just kind of like, oh, this is beautiful. Well, if something's beautiful, but, you know, Will's in a bad mood or Lucy's in a bad mood, you know, they're going to respond that way, and it's very honest. Yeah, I'd say that's all. I can leave this as kind of a little shorter review. Yeah, in general, very good. You know, if you're having any problems, well, not problems with family, but just kind of want to get a insight on family life without reading an overly didactic kind of like self-help book, but just something that kind of focuses on another family and their troubles, and maybe you can kind of relate to them, albeit in what I enjoy, kind of like a foreign culture. This is the book for you. So, Hong Kong, One Modern American's Family's Misadventures in the Gateway to China, by Paul, I'll say this wrong, Hanstedt, Hanstedt? There you go. Paul Hanstedt. Alright, you guys. See you later. Bye.